is pretty exciting for us today. We're at Olustee State Battlefield Historic Site. The Civil War historians have agreed upon a system based on numbers of people involved, etc., of classification of various battles. The classification we're going to talk about right now is the major engagement classification. Gettysburg, Antietam, Chattanooga, Lookout Mountain, Vicksburg. There's many majors. They're not as many as the other classifications, the smaller ones, the minor engagements, the skirmishes, etc. This is the site of a major engagement. This is the only major engagement in Florida. And that makes it, to me, very compelling and very exciting. And that's part of the reason why, excuse me, they've preserved this area. In early February 1864, forces in Jacksonville had landed there via ship and basically occupied the city, decided they wanted to essentially take over the capital, Tallahassee. Well, their intermediate goals on the way to doing that were to attack and conquer the forces in Lake City, further on in Live Oak, to destroy the railroad bridge going to the across the Swanee. And of course, those efforts were successful. Then they were going to continue on to Tallahassee. Tallahassee is the only Confederate state capital that was not it was never conquered. And after a certain point, it became an issue of just not worth expending the lives over. It was far enough away from the actual fighting to not be a huge problem once the war started winding down. Of course, they wanted it at the beginning, but again, as the war went on, it just wasn't really even worth it. Not everything, let me rephrase that. Basically south of North Gainesville at that time was uninhabited for the most part. The Armed Occupation Act of 1842 opened up a lot of land in that area, and a lot of people went after it, you know, and settled down there, but it was a smattering of people. It was a small amount of people compared to the amount of people that were up here. This was the main area. We're 40-50 miles west of Jacksonville, 15-20 miles east of Lake City. We're along 90. This was a Confederate victory. In the morning of February 20, 1864, forces under General Seymour, attacked from the east towards, from Jacksonville, against forces under Joseph Finnegan, who basically entrenched here. They had earthworks further on, back by Ocean Pond. They were well drilled. They were well schooled. They were very much prepared. They knew that this was coming for a very long time, and they were prepared for it. I don't think the Federals necessarily were as aware of their preparedness as they found out that they were. I tried to do this whole thing in 3 different parts or 4 different parts, but there's a battlefield trail over here that you walk around, and they have little markers everywhere you go. It's all basically, it's Florida, so there aren't a lot of geological features in the ground to tell you anything. It's all it's pines and scrub, and the scrub was very thin back in those days. There's a cemetery over here I want to take a look at. It seems reasonable that would have some battle dead in it. Looks like some newer gravestones as well. I took a look at it a little bit ago. But again, the battlefield is over here. I don't want to say there's not much to it, but it's not like at a Gettysburg or Vicksburg or something like that, where you can say, you know, here's Little Round Top, here's Devil's Den, here's the entrenchments. There's none of that here. All the undergrowth has grown up, and according to accounts of the battle, the undergrowth was very sparse, so it wouldn't be like we're going to see it now with all the palmetto scrub on the bottom. We have another Confederate monument. Again, who knows how long that's going to last. We have a couple of old Napoleons here that are painted black, I guess to preserve them. And we have a flag. It's not the battle flag. It's not the flag that was flown by these troops, but it's technically a flag of the Confederacy. So we're going to try to take a look at the monument. See the flags above it. And the cannon. We're going to take a closer look. They have a neat little visitor center. It's nothing great. They're going to build a bigger one apparently, but it's the same one that was here. This is my third trip to this site. I visited a reenactment here one time in the 90s, before Brevet was born. So it would have been, I guess, 95. Yeah, the winter of 95 in February of 96. Right there you can see where that car is pulling out of, going over the little hump. That's the railroad. That railroad was there then. And that's what they were following, was the railroad. Over here's the cemetery. Off in the distance, you can almost see it. And we're going to pan around to the battlefield here. And the battlefield is off in the distance. And of course, this would, where we're standing right now, is sacred ground. This would have been battlefield ground. Those are more of the major troop movements and that sort of thing. But how they figured it out after all those years, you know, when they marked all this out, is certainly, you know, beyond me. So we're going to go take a look at the monument. And then we're going to go inside the visitor center. And there we have the monument contains the appropriate flag, commonly referred as the Confederate flag. It's also known as the Confederate battle flag, the St. Andrew's Cross. It was not the government flag, but it was the national battle flag. The UDC, doing their typically great work, has erected a monument to Joseph Finnegan, the general who was here, in charge of the, it says, commander of District of Middle and East Florida. And this is a monument to Colquitt, General Alfred Holt Colquitt. He fought at Gettysburg. He was from Georgia. This decisive engagement prevented a Sherman-like invasion of Georgia from the south. Well, certainly with more than a year left in the war, as we know now, which of course they didn't know then, had they been able to conquer Tallahassee, been able to conquer North Florida, certainly they would have swept up into Georgia and the rest of North Florida and Alabama. It would have been a bloodbath for civilians. Horrific, terrible death toll, property loss unimaginable that took generations to overcome, to recover from. To the men who fought and triumphed here in defense of their homes and firesides, this monument is erected by the UDC aided by the state of Florida in commemoration of the devotion of cause, liberty, and state sovereignty. Oh yeah, that'll have to come down. I'm sure somebody will be all upset about that. Plus there's a honest to goodness battle flag. Yeah, somebody will be all pissed off about that. Here's the other part of it. This is old. I mean, very old. I don't know how old. Probably over 100 years. 1914, 18, whatever. Battle of Olustee was fought on this ground. February 20th. 5,000 troops, 6,000 troops. Federals defeated. And the reason why the Federals defeated again were because these guys knew the ground, A. B, they were prepared. And C, the Federal forces committed their various regiments, battalions, whatever, etc., bodies of troops, piecemeal. They did not have a coordinated attack. And that, more than any other reason, is why they lost. So it wasn't as much Confederate competency as it was Federal incompetency. All right, we're going to go into the little visitor center. It's pretty cool. They have a flag in here. It's not the real flag. There's a real flag. They do a reenactment here every year that I've been to one, but it was here where the film, the scenes for the film Glory were filmed here, a lot of the battle scenes. This battle is famed for, among other things, its involvement of United States colored troops, black people, black men fighting here. This is a pretty neat picture. I'm guessing that's a reenactment. Yeah, the only fat guys. They didn't have fat guys back in the... There were no fat rebels. That's definitely a black and white of a reenactment. And it's got the wrong date on it. I hate to be a picky. Cool picture, but not real. And this tells Colonel Joseph Hawley about some parts of the battle. This is one of my favorite things. It's a diorama, a very, very, very small one, but still very cool. There's a New York Times, February 29, 1864, reporting war news. Here we have flags of the Confederacy. And this is a very old building. This has been here for many, many, many years. This gives an idea. This is the cutout, a more up-to-date version. I'm sorry, a more detailed version. And this is longer. This shows there's the old Fernandina to Cedar Key rail. This rail goes from Jacksonville to Tallahassee and beyond. through Lake City, through Live Oak. There was apparently a station here. I'd like to find the rest of that, the remains of that.
Nearly half that of the invading forces. The entire battle lasted for about 3.5 hours. It will go down as the Battle of Ocean Pond to some, but also as the Battle of Olustee to others. General Seymour's words to Gilmore upon his defeat.
I met the enemy at Olustee and now falling back. Many wounded. A devilish hard rub.
The Union dead were so carelessly buried by the Confederate forces that hogs dig up the remains mere weeks later, leaving bones and skulls strewn across the battlefield. The Union loss in Florida puts an end to the attempt to win Florida over in time for Lincoln's election. General Gilmore, days after the battle, noting this about Florida.
The enemy have thrown so large a force into Florida that I judge it to be inexpedient to attempt to do more at this present time than to hold the line of the St. Johns River. The presence of so large a force as General Seymour represents the enemy to have in his front shows the importance he attaches to Florida as a source of supply.
Florida Governor
Original
John
flag before.
received the following from General Finnegan at the end of the battle.
The other 6 stars were added.
I met the enemy in full force today under General Seymour and defeated him with great loss. I captured 5 pieces of artillery, hold possession of the battle.
All right, so we're gonna head out and finish our tour of the field.